Good morning, everyone. So nice to see all your faces. My name is Reverend Emily Bruce, and I'm the minister of this congregation, and I want to welcome you all here to First Parish, whether it's your first time or your 1,000th time or something in between. I'm happy to have you with us here today. It is so good to be together. I also want to say a special hello to those of you joining us on Zoom. Everybody wave to the camera in the balcony. Hello. And while you're there, wave to Jack, who's our new AV guru. Welcome, Jack. We're so happy to have you with us too, so thank you. I just got a note that we have run out of orders of service, so sharing is caring. If you don't have one and need one, or if you can share with your neighbor, that would be great. Thank you. As Unitarian Universalists, we are a people of diverse beliefs, but we share a common faith, a faith that every single person is worthy of love, a faith that we are connected by an interdependent web to each other and our earth, and a faith that what we do, each of us in and for our world, really matters. So whoever you are, whoever you love, however you make meaning of this world around us, I want you to know that you are welcome here with us today, and thank you for joining us in our mission to help create a world of inclusion and safety and love for everyone. And personally, I gotta say, it is so good to be standing here right now. After the summer we have had, for those of you who know the summer we have had, it is so good to be standing here, to be back in this building, and to see all of your faces. I'm a little emotional, I have to say, to see you all. I'm trying not to cry. But it's good tears. It's all good tears, right? You may have noticed the things hanging on the wall and off of the pulpit. These are all of the many cards and letters and statements of solidarity that we have received from churches, organizations, friends, neighbors, and even complete strangers from across the country since the July 4th vandalism that happened to this church. It's amazing. So I encourage you, when you have a chance, to walk around and read some of the amazingly beautiful sentiments that a lot of people who don't even know us sent to us. And a lot of these cards accompanied checks too. So, I mean, it's unbelievable. Because, as you know, we have weathered a tragedy here together in this congregation. Being here today is an important step in our healing process. Together, we are repairing the physical damage that has happened to this meeting house, but we're also tending to the wounds in our own hearts. And that's what this service is largely about today. How can we do the work of mending our wounds while also at the same time keeping our hearts open? How can we not let this horrible act close us off to each other and to our world? How can we learn from what has happened to us and grow, but to grow in ways we may not have ever expected? The question is, how do we respond? And each of us has to answer that question for ourselves, and also collectively as a community, we need to find our way towards an answer also. So that's kind of what we're going to be talking about a little bit in our service today. But before we start, I also want to bring your attention to the back of your order of service. There are some changes there that those of you who attend regularly may notice. First, the 7 UU principles that used to be printed there are no longer there. And that is because at General Assembly, our annual conference in June, the great collective of Unitarian Universalists across the country overwhelmingly voted in our new shared values, which is represented by that chalice symbol at the bottom and the 7 words within it. So that is how this represents a significant shift in how we talk about ourselves. We will dig more into those specific values later in the service in our water communion ritual, but for now I just want to say that these values, our 7 principles, sorry I lost my place, our 7 principles are still very much present within those values. In some ways, it's a repackaging of how we talk about who we are and what we try to do in the world. So we're going to spend some time throughout the year unpacking that a little bit, talking about it more, but I wanted to explain what that image was. The other graphic at the top of the page represents our worship themes that we're going to dig into this year. Our theme for the whole year is deep questions, because we're all asking ourselves some deep questions right now about our world, about our country, about our political system, and all the ways we can try to find hope among what feels like a lot of despair. To be alive today, I believe, is to wonder at some level what this all means, where we're going, and more importantly, why? What can we do to help? What can we do to feel less angry, to feel less helpless, and to be more connected? So this year we're going to be digging into that, pun intended, with these themes for the year. And I know some of you are already asking, wait, where's December? Where's December? Hello, where's December? December, due largely to the fact that it is a major holiday time of the year, will have its own theme, so stay tuned. So this fall, we're focusing on the question, how are we digging deep? And this month, we're asking ourselves, how are we digging deep into our world? This is a moment right now of reckoning, which feels like it's been amidst a decade of moments of reckoning. We're facing a very consequential election in less than 60 days. I know I don't need to tell you that. We're also facing very real suffering in our world, wars and oppression and deep need. So how can we, as a community and as individuals, dig deep into our world when so many of us, myself included, just want to turn away, want to shut down, want to bury my head in the sand? How can we save our hearts from breaking even further by what we see in the news every single day? How can we stay present to ourselves and each other as we navigate what feels like daily crises and indignities all around us? And how can our values, those unshakable truths that help us make meaning of the world, how can they help? Because the thing about values, they don't really mean much unless you test them, right? Unless you really hold them up in moments of crisis and moments of hardship. If you're never pushed to examine them through the lens of what is happening in our world, then they don't really mean much, do they? So let's dig deep. We're going to talk about that a lot this year. What do we value, and how are those values help us not only see the world for what it is, but respond to the world and do our part to speak out for what we believe, for what is important, and what is true. So, now that I've unpacked all of that, I'm going to invite you all to join me in taking a deep breath in and out. Get comfortable in your seat. If you're holding your phone, maybe put it down. Please also silence it. If you feel any tension in your back or your neck, feel free to move around. Get comfortable. The world and everything that's going on in your hearts and minds, it's not going to go away, but give yourself some space for comfort and a little bit of peace while you're here with us. Join me in taking another deep breath in and out. Our service will now begin with the lighting of our chalice, which is the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. And we're going to try something new. Is there a volunteer out there who would like to come up and light our chalice while Paula Fisher, who is our worship associate, reads the chalice lighting? I see a hand. Come on up, buddy. Let's do this. Thank you. Paula will now lead us in lighting our chalice.
Good morning. My name is Paula Fisher, and I am on the music committee. Welcome to First Parish, whether it's your first time or your 1,000th, that's hard to say, 1,000th time. Anyway, I'm so happy to be here with you. It's good to be together. As Unitarian Universalists, we are a people of diverse beliefs. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm reading Emily's part. Okay.
That's why I was like, skip ahead.
Yeah, skip ahead, exactly. Right. Anyway, okay. This morning we light our chalice with these words, entitled Becoming by Carrie Newcomer. Water becomes rain, and then becomes stream, which then becomes river, becomes ocean, becomes mist, becomes fog, becomes rain, which slides down the rocks and is taken into the ground, and then taken up by plants, animals, and birds, and people. It becomes the sweat of the brow and the tears slipping down upon the shirt that's been slept in. Evaporating into air, it remains invisible for a while. Then, after a time, It becomes dew, which burns off as the liquid sun rises, becoming mist, becoming cloud, becoming rain. Nothing is ever really gone. It only transforms. May we join in worship together, a people whole and transforming. I invite you to rise in body or in spirit for our opening hymn in the gray hymnal, hymn number 1, May Nothing Evil Cross This Door.
On July 4th, this beloved space was vandalized and damaged. It was a violation of our beloved home. It was a shock to all of us and has left many wounds in its wake. For some of us, it activated a strong sense of anger and the need for justice. For some of us, it made us feel afraid in a space that we have never, ever before felt afraid. For some of us, it brought up a lot of feelings about past trauma. And for all of us, in our own ways, it caused immeasurable sadness and grief. And so, in the wake of this tragic event, we came together as a community. We tended to each other's hearts, we supported and held each other as we began to reweave the tear in our interdependent web. So many joined us in this work. Just look at all of the tangible proof that we are not alone. And I neglected to mention that the prayer shawls lining the water communion table were a gift from the UU congregation in Chelmsford. So that's what those woven shawls are that you will see closer up later in the service. So many churches and organizations and friends and strangers showed up on our lawn on July 9th for our solidarity service to say, we are here. You are not alone. We are not alone because we make this community what it is with our presence, with our compassion, and with our love. So today, we are going to collectively bless this meeting house. We are going to reclaim it as our spirit's home, as our beloved place of gathering, and as our sacred space. As Unitarian Universalists, we know that we each carry the power and the ability to bless the world around us. So we join in this ritual together now to claim this place as our beloved home. So in a moment, Kara Roth is going to sing a beautiful song for us, Willie Nelson's We Don't Run. And as she sings, I invite each of you to rise if you would like, move around the space, and find a place to lay your hand on this building. You could choose your favorite pew. You could choose one of the broken windows. You could choose, I was going to say the chalice, maybe the base of the chalice. Not the flame, but the base. or anywhere else your eye is drawn. You can go up to the balcony if you want. Anywhere your eye is drawn, find a place to lay your hand on this beloved building. And once the song ends, I'm going to lead us all in a brief laying on of hands ritual as all of us find a way to touch this building we love so much. Now, if you're joining us as a visitor today and you think this ritual isn't for you, that is not true. It is for you. You have the power of blessing too, and we hope you will join us because you belong here too. This church is for all who actually want to be here, who celebrate love and inclusion and peace. And so I invite you to participate too if you want. If you don't, that is quite all right, but please don't tell yourself this isn't for you because it is. And also, if you can't or don't want to move around, it is perfectly okay to stay in your seat and touch the pew, touch the cushion, touch a hymnal, anything that works for you. So all of it's okay, all of it's welcome. So I'm going to invite Kara to give us We Don't Run by Willie Nelson, and please feel free to get up and move about the space.
We don't run, we don't compromise, we don't quit, we never do. We look for love, we find it in the eyes of me, and the eyes of you. You are the road, you are the only way. I'll follow you forevermore. We'll look for love, we'll find it in the eyes that see through all the doors. There is a train that races through the night on rails of steel that reach the soul, fueled by fire as soft as candlelight, but it warms the heart of a love grown cold. We don't run, we don't compromise, we don't quit, we never do. We look for love, we find it in the eyes of me, and the eyes of you. Words that feel, words that sympathize, words
Thank you, Kara. All right, stay where you are. And if you feel comfortable, close your eyes, resting your hand wherever your hand is resting, and send your love through your hand into this space, into this building, into this structure, into the air, into each other. Send love through your hands. Whatever part of you is touching the building, send your love. I invite you to respond to every phrase I read with the words, "With love, we bless this house." For the repair and restoration, physical and spiritual, of our sacred church home, with love, we bless this house. That this space continues to be a sanctuary for all who enter, seeking wholeness, seeking truth, seeking love. With love, we bless this house. That the generations of ancestors who have come before us continue to be our cloud of witnesses, informing our past and guiding our steps into the future. With love, we bless this house. That future generations may come to know the love and belonging of this place, and it may feed their minds, their hearts, and their souls as it does ours. With love, we bless this house. That this house continues to be an instrument of the good work of our helping hands, our loving hearts, and our open minds. With love, we bless this house. That this house be forever rooted in truth, compassion, and love that will always blossom into peace, liberty, and justice. With love, we bless this house. That we, each of us, may endeavor to sustain the legacy of this beloved church, strong enough to keep hate out and hold love in. With love, we bless this house. May it be so, and amen. Thank you. You may be seated. Good. Me either.
When we give, we say yes to something we value. In this congregation, we take up an offering each week to say yes to the values of our UU faith and yes to this beloved community. Please give as you are able. Today's offering will be gratefully received. Our offertory today is Healing Waters by Cliff Harden. Our reading this morning is an excerpt from the essay, "We Were Made for These Times," by Dr. Clarissa Pinkola Estes. Dr. Estes is a mestiza Latina and first-generation American poet, psychoanalyst, and trauma specialist who describes herself as a lifelong activist in service of the voiceless. My friends, do not lose heart. We were made for these times. I have heard from so many recently who are deeply and properly bewildered. They are concerned about the state of affairs in our world now. Ours is a time of almost daily astonishment and often righteous rage over the latest degradations of what matters most to civilized, visionary people. You are right in your assessments. The luster and hubris some have aspired to, while endorsing acts so heinous against children, elders, everyday people, the poor, the unguarded, the helpless, is breathtaking. Yet I urge you, ask you, gentle you, to please not spend your spirit dry by bewailing these difficult times. Especially, do not lose hope. I grew up on the Great Lakes and recognize a seaworthy vessel when I see one. Regarding awakening souls, there have never been more able vessels in the water than there are right now across the world. And they are fully provisioned and able to signal one another as never before in the history of humankind. Look out over the prow. There are millions of boats of righteous souls on the waters with you. Even though your veneers may shiver from every wave in the stormy royal, I assure you that the long timbers composing your prow and rudder come with a great forest. That long-grained lumber is known to withstand storms, to hold together, to hold its own, and to advance regardless. One of the most calming and powerful actions you can do to intervene in a stormy world is to stand up and show your soul. Soul shines like gold in dark times. Struggling souls catch light from other souls who are fully lit and willing to show it. To display the lantern of the soul in shadowy times like these, to be fierce and to show mercy toward others, both are acts of immense bravery and greatest necessity. There will always be times when you feel discouraged. I too have felt despair many times in my life, but I do not keep a chair for it. I will not entertain it. It is not allowed to eat from my plate. The reason is this: in my uttermost bones, I know something, as you do. It is that there can be no despair when you remember why you came to earth, who you serve, and who sent you here. I hope you will write this on your wall. When a great ship is in harbor and moored, it is safe. There can be no doubt, but that is not what great ships are built for.
Thank you, Paula. We were made for these times indeed, even though it may not feel like it, even though we may not want it, even though we don't always believe it is possible to hope, possible to survive, possible to overcome. We were made for these times. I haven't had enough time yet to really check in with all of you. We'll get to that a little bit today afterwards, but to hear more about how you're doing, how you're feeling, about what has transpired here over the summer, and how you're handling all of your big feelings. Because I have a lot of big feelings right now. I mean, I usually do. I'm a big feelings kind of person. You know that about me, but especially now, about what has happened here in our community, about what's happening in our country, about the election. I have a lot of big feelings, and I'm assuming all of you do too. This summer was unlike anything we wanted or expected, and so I wanted to share a little bit in this homily about how I've been doing as a way of opening space around the question of how do we keep our hearts open. So on the morning of July 4th, I was visiting my brother and his family at their lake house in North Carolina. I had arrived the night before, and this was day 3 of my vacation. I was experiencing that feeling that some of you might recognize about 2 or 3 days into the trip where you really start to let go. Who knows that feeling? Raise your hand if you know that feeling when you're like, oh, now I'm on vacation. You know, you kind of stop thinking about whatever you left behind at work. You stop thinking about whatever else is bugging you. You just kind of relax for the first time. It takes a few days, right? That's where I was on the morning of July 4th. It's okay, it's okay. So I was sitting on the deck, I had a cup of coffee, I was reading a book, I was drinking in the sunshine and looking at this beautiful lake in front of me when I heard my phone go, and I picked up my phone and I saw a text from our sexton, Paul, telling me what had happened. And in that instant, everything changed. I was up, the book was thrown to the ground, I was texting him back, I was texting other people, I was getting on the phone. The rest of the day ceased to be about July 4th, but largely about this horrible thing that had happened back home. This unimaginable thing that someone did to us. To say my anxiety went into overdrive is probably the understatement of the year. The next day, I drove 12 hours straight through from North Carolina back to Kingston. Yes, I'm sorry to say this in the pulpit, but that sucked. It was such a long drive. Whoever's driven 12 hours straight by yourself, I hope to never do it again. Yeah, it's whew, because I was alone. I didn't have anyone else in the car, so it was okay, but I made it. And actually, about halfway through the drive, I realized that that drive is exactly what I needed that day, because I alternated between crying and screaming and bewailing everything that had happened. I realized that I needed space to process some of the immediate big feelings before I could come back here and be fully present with all of you. I needed to make space for all the stuff swirling in my mind and my heart, and the drive gave me that. So it was an exhausting but necessary day. And then I was home, and then I had to come see the church, see with my own eyes what had happened. And then we had the potluck and the listening circle, and then we were setting up the crowdfunding campaign, and we were setting up the crowdfunding campaign and fielding emails and phone calls from the press, and we were planning the solidarity service on the lawn, and we were inviting churches and neighbors and trying to get the word out, and more emails and more phone calls and more text messages. And I was in what you might call get her done mode the first few days I was back. But if I poked my head just below the surface of all of that anxious, busy energy, I could only confess to myself that I was full of rage. I was so angry. I was angry at that man that he would dare to breach the safety and sanctity of our church home. I was full of hatred at the violent and divisive culture of our world, this culture that somehow convinces people that inclusion and belonging and loving people is a threat to be destroyed. And in my mind, I will be honest, I had very special choice words for our former president as one of the fomenters of this culture. I was livid that I had to give up my vacation, my time to rest and renew and really re-stitch myself back together, to be here and face a traumatic crisis that I did not feel prepared to face. All of that is true. And all of that was swirling just underneath the surface like a stinky, rotting stew. My anger was doing its damnness from helping keep me from feeling my grief, from realizing that I was full of sorrow, from recognizing the fact that my heart was broken. And I was still very much in that stew when we started our solidarity service. That following Tuesday on the lawn. I was so glad to be back. I was so heartened to see the swell of people show up and be grateful to be here, to be part of this community. And all of that is true, and I was full of rage. Because we are large, as Walt Whitman says. We contain multitudes. And then during that service, my heart finally broke open. It was when I heard the words of Reverend Sarah Person's prayer. For those who weren't there or maybe don't remember this part, my friend Reverend Sarah Person offered a prayer during the service that practically brought me to my knees. And I'll read an excerpt of it here. She said, "A broken man broke glass and wood. A broken man burned the emblems of what our faith has called us to embrace. A broken man tried to break our purpose, tried to break our courage, tried to break our trust. A broken man tried to break our sense of safety and belonging. A broken man tried to break our hearts. A broken man tried to break our hearts. And in my case, at least, he definitely succeeded. But in doing so, mine ended up breaking open. Because calling him a broken man is what it took for me to finally see him as a person and not a representation of evil. A broken person breaks things. A broken person is so full of their own wounds that they can't help but wound others. A broken person lives in their own stew of rage and grief and pain, just like the one I felt stirring within me. And a broken person needs compassion just as much as I do. We have all known brokenness in some way, shape, or form. For some of us, the worst things we have ever done, the words or the actions that continue to haunt us, happened because we were reacting to our own brokenness. Yes? Yes. And in that moment, I knew that no matter all the big feelings that were coursing through me and would continue to course through me and are still coursing through me, that I could not and would not let my heart close itself off. I would not let myself harden. I would not let myself write off his actions as the evil deeds of an inherently bad person, someone beyond help, someone beyond redemption, someone beyond grace. I had to keep my heart open. And that is the lesson I want all of us to ponder today in this tense and anxious time. We can be angry at the state of the world. We can be upset. We can resolve ourselves to fighting for justice and truth. All of those are good. All of those things are necessary. But do not let your hearts harden. Don't let it happen. Do not let the pain of the world rob you of your ability to feel compassion for your fellow human beings. Do not write off elements of the human race because you find their beliefs or their actions abhorrent. Because our faith teaches us that love is at the center of all that we do. Look at that little chalice image on the back of your order of service. Love is at the center. And that value, I'll be honest, was sorely tested for me through this horrible, horrible event. But I was able to dig deep into that truth, especially when it was hardest for me to do so, and that is what allowed me to heal. None of us are getting anywhere by believing the lie that some people deserve to be destroyed, or the lie that answering anger with anger is really going to get us anywhere good. As the election creeps closer, as our divisions feel more and more intense, let us keep love at the center. As counterintuitive as that sounds, because I know it does sound completely counterintuitive in our world today to be putting love at the center, and as countercultural as that statement is, let's do it anyway. Let's just do it anyway. Who's stopping us? If we choose, who can stop us from doing that? So look for love in the eyes of me and the eyes of you, as Kara sang so beautifully for us. There she is. Look for love in the eyes of me and the eyes of you. Because when we close our hearts, when we shut ourselves off, all we accomplish is starving our own souls from that love that we so desperately want and need. So let that love remind us again and again and again and again and again, over and over again, that there is far more good than bad in this world. And we, each of us, has to do our part to make that true. I will close with a few more lines from Reverend Sarah's poem. Let us know in our bones that ultimately, with grace and time, We can shift our spiritual pain away from the fear of that night to compassion, away from the rage to some kind of understanding. Let solidarity help us gain wisdom from our anger, that violence against one person, one people, one church is violence against us all. May it be so. Amen. It is now time for our water communion ritual, so I would invite up Laura Sanda to lead us.
Reverend Emily, y'all. Rituals are things that we do or that we say over and over that have personal value or meaning to the person doing them. Waking up and having a cup of coffee can be someone's morning ritual. Anyone? A simple handshake or a fist bump is a ritual between two people. Many religious traditions have developed their own special rituals, and I am honored to introduce a special UU ritual here this morning. Water communion is a ritual many UU churches perform on the first Sunday, the Ingathering Sunday of the church year. As some of you already know, water communion was created back in 1980 by two Unitarian Universalist women who wanted to create a new ritual that spoke to our connectedness to one another, to the totality of life, and to our place on this planet. You were invited to bring a vial or a jar of water from a special or a sacred place. This may be from your garden hose, a faucet in your home, or even an ocean or a lake or somewhere you visited this summer. In past years, we all came forward and poured our water into one shared vessel. This year, we're going to do things just a wee bit differently. This year, we have 6 bowls to represent our 6 newly adopted UU shared values. In a moment, I will invite everyone up to come forward and add the water you brought to one of these containers. You can choose the bowl/value that is speaking to you this morning. And at the risk of overcomplicating things, you can feel free to add a few drops to multiple bowls. And if you did not bring water with you this morning, no fear. We have several pre-filled jars that you can choose from to add water to the bowls. So, with my beautiful assistant here, our first container represents justice. It means we are fair. We take apart racism and oppression and make decisions together fairly. We vote, speak up, and act with care. Our next container represents equity. Equity is when everyone gets what they need for work and for fun. Every person is inherently worthy, and we make our communities accessible and inclusive. Our next container represents transformation. It means we change, and we can still grow at every age. We change ethically and spiritually, and know we are never complete or perfect. Our next container represents pluralism. We embrace our differences and celebrate our diversity as we learn and grow together. We know that there's not just one right way. The next container represents interdependence. We find connection with and care for all beings and the earth. We're connected, so our earth and its beings are respected. And our final container represents generosity. We share freely and joyfully to build a strong community. We share our faith, our presence, and resources. So I invite you now to come forward, maybe down the center aisle, And everyone is welcome to participate, whether you are a first-time visitor, a long-time member, or anywhere in between. we have 6 very full bowls over here. I'm very grateful. Good job, everyone. Thank you. Love is the power that holds us together and is at the center of our shared values. We are accountable to one another for doing the work of living our shared values through the spiritual discipline of love. It is the core of what we do. This vessel represents the love at the center of our beloved community. Just like individual drops of water form rivers and rivers form an ocean, all of the sacred water we've gathered in these bowls will now complete its journey into the one shared vessel along with some water from last year's water communion. As it makes its way, let us together bless this water. The response to each line of this blessing is, "This water is sacred." This water is sacred. It is made sacred by the many hands that have poured it with intention and love, the many stories that each drop contains, the many lives surrounding it in this unique moment, connected by commitment and faith. This water is sacred. May it continue to flow through this community with shining reflections of the unique gifts that flow through each of its members. This water is sacred. May it continue to nurture this community with sustaining hope that we journey together through ripples of growth and change. This water is sacred. May it continue to bless this community with loving reminders of our collective responsibility to one another and the world. This water is sacred. May its ripples be a reminder that the changes and growth within this community bring movement and transformation to the world beyond our doors. This water is sacred. May its purity offer grace to our community and the willingness to forgive ourselves and one another when we make mistakes. This water is sacred. And finally, with our water from last year, in moments when the reservoirs, okay, it's fine. It's okay. Okay, but as our last one told us, we forgive each other when we, okay. In moments when the reservoirs of hearts and spirits are drained by sorrow or pain, may it nourish them with the knowledge that we are surrounded by a deep and abundant love. This water is sacred. As we conclude this year's water communion ritual, let us all go forward into the new church year together, remembering these blessings, and that we are all connected to one another in sacred community, and that we are surrounded by a deep and abundant love. May it be so. Amen.
Thank you. As we bring our service to a close, and I know it's been a bit of a long one, so thank you all for your perseverance. I do have a couple quick announcements, and the first is we are moving announcements to the end of the service, so that's the first one. Yes. Second, please join us for our potluck. Even if you didn't bring anything, it's okay, across the street. We're going to make some time to check in with each other. We're also going to give you all an update on where we are with repairing the church, what's going on, what's happened since we were all together in July. So please come for that. There will be childcare available, so if you have children with you, you can come, you can have them with you or take them downstairs. There will be childcare. Second, our contemplative worship service series is beginning again this coming Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. right here in the Meetinghouse. It's the second Wednesday of every month from September to June. So this coming Wednesday at 5:30 to 6, it's a short 30-minute service of prayer and music and silence and a little bit of ritual, and all are welcome, all are invited. So that's coming up this week. Next Sunday, the 15th at 4 o'clock, right here in the Meetinghouse, Angel Vendetti and her Cordage Ensemble will be offering a benefit concert for us called On the Side of Love. It's been in the newsletter. There's signs up in the Beal House. So I hope you will come. I hope you will spread the word. She's as a longtime member of this congregation, and she's doing this as a service for us in our efforts to rebuild and repair. So we are so grateful, and I hope you can all make it. And finally, on Friday, September 27th, which is coming up in a few weeks, we are hosting a film screening in the Beal House of a documentary called Bad Faith. If you have ever wanted to understand more about where Christian nationalism comes from, how it started, and its impacts, not only on this election, but on our culture, I strongly encourage you to come see this film. We're co-hosting it with the First Parish of Plymouth. There'll be a talk back afterwards. It's a very powerful film that I saw when I went to a conference in April, and it did a lot to help me understand where Christian nationalism has come from and how it really doesn't have that much to do with Christianity. So I hope you'll come. There's stuff in the newsletter and will continue to be in the newsletter. That is all, so I invite you to rise in body or in spirit to join us for our closing hymn, number 1008 in the Teal hymnal, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. Friends, as we extinguish our... Whoa. I think that mic's a little hot. All right, I'm just going to turn that off.